Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Natural Resources and Economic Development. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, and the Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. We also acknowledge that the people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years, and we honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who have come before us on this land. So my name is Tom Taggart, and I'm the MLA for Colchester North and chair of this committee. And today we shall hear from witnesses regarding implementing the critical minerals strategy. So before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to turn off their phones and put them, or turn off your phones or put them on silent. And in the case of emergency, please use the Granville Street exit and go to Grand Parade. Which Granville Street is, for those that aren't here, is to our, from here is to our right, out the back door. And I will now ask the committee members to introduce themselves for the record by stating their name and their constituency. And I'll start on my left here.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle McQuarrie. I'm the MLA for Inverness, and I'm the vice chair of this committee.
Good afternoon. I'm John Wightman. I'm the MLA for Glace-Payne Dominion. Happy to be here with you guys today.
Good afternoon. David Bowlby, MLA for Annapolis. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Brad McGowan, the MLA for Cole Harbour Dartmouth. Good to be with you.
Hi there. I'm Susan LeBlanc, the MLA for Dartmouth North, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa LaChance. I'm the MLA for Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island, and my pronouns are they and them.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect, he, him.
So, thank you. And so I would also like to note the presence of Legislative Counsel Genevieve Harvey and Legislative Committee Clerk Tamara Young. So our topic is implementing the critical mineral strategy, and I would like to welcome all the witnesses today and ask if they'd like to introduce themselves. And then we'll begin with opening remarks. So, but first we'll start with, sorry, Miss Chief. Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chief Tamara Young of Pictou and First Nation.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Gatien. I'm the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janice Zinck, Executive Director of Geoscience and Mines, Department of Natural Resources.
Sean Kirby, Executive Director of the Mining Association of Nova Scotia.
Mark Haywood, the President and CEO of EDM Resources and the Managing Director of Scotia Mine.
John Wightman. I'm with the Goldfields Group of companies.
Sir, Mr. Butler. Yep.
Good afternoon. Patrick Butler, Senior Energy and Mines Advisor with the Gwillimut Lauguswan, or KMK.
Jessica Ginsburg, Barrister and Solicitor with Gwillimut Laaguswan.
Excuse me. Thank you, everyone. And so we're going to start with opening statements. We'll offer to Chief Young first there. I just want to say we'd like to try and keep them from 3 to 5 minutes so we can get into the questioning. So if you're coming up short, then we'll try and you'll have an opportunity at the end to make additional comments, closing comments. Thank you. Chief, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chief Young. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Natural Resources and Economic Development Standing Committees, guests and colleagues. As mentioned before, my name is Chief Tamara Young, and I'm here today on behalf of the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs as a portfolio lead for Environment, Energy and Mines. With me is Patrick Butler, our Senior Mi'kmaq Energy and Mines Advisor, and Jessica Ginsburg, Legal Counsel for Gwillimut Laaguswan. They are prepared to respond to any technical or legal questions that may arise. I want to begin by thanking the committee for inviting us to participate in this important conversation. It is essential the committees hear from all perspectives, ours in particular, as we claim title to the land and resources. The implementation of the province's critical mineral strategy presents a real opportunity for meaningful engagement, but that engagement must be grounded in mutual respect and a commitment to genuine collaboration. Frankly, that engagement should have come much earlier in the process than where we are now. As constitutional rights holders across the lands, waters, and resources in Nova Scotia, we expect to be part of early discussions before decisions are made. We should not hear about important developments that Nova Scotia is making from the evening news. This includes when policy or legislative changes are being proposed in the mining sector. We have a number of mechanisms in place where information should be shared directly. This is how respectful relationships are built and how time-consuming disputes can be avoided down the line. On March 28, 2025, the Assembly expressed concerns with hydraulic fracturing and uranium mining in Nova Scotia to both the Premier and to Nova Scotians in general. It appears that we are not being heard. We have serious concerns about how provincial decisions are being made without advance notice to and transparent conversations with the Mi'kmaq. Too often, we are informed only after decisions are made, which erodes trust and hinders progress and the nation-to-nation relationship we are working to build. When it comes to consultation on mining, exploration, and mineral developments, that consultation must be early, consistent, and meaningful. Consulting the Mi'kmaq is not just a box to be checked. We have a consultation process in place of which Nova Scotia is a signatory to. This process outlines how we are to be consulted. Let's not forget the onus is on the Crown. The province has the constitutional and legal duty to consult. We do not want to stand in the way of ethical and sustainable mining developments, but we will not support any process that treats our constitutional rights as an afterthought. It is the honor of the Crown and a legal obligation that cannot be overlooked. The ultimate purpose of the honor of the Crown is reconciliation. We believe that it is time for the province to update its consultation practices with the Mi'kmaq directly involved in shaping those changes. This includes updating the Proponent's Guide, currently available on the Office of Ill New Affairs website, to reflect clear, consistent standards. We were consulted on the original document over 10 years ago, and it's time to revisit and improve that document. Consistent and reliable communication from Nova Scotia's departments, including natural resources, energy, environment, and climate change, and Ill New Affairs, is essential. There must be transparency and predictability around what triggers the duty to consult, including mining projects on private lands. Proponents need to have clear understandings of how to engage and consult with the Mi'kmaq when consultation is delegated, and consistent consequences that Nova Scotia is holding them accountable to when those expectations are not met. There is also a need for adequate funding to ensure our KMK technicians are meaningfully engaged on our behalf and able to provide technical support in informing our decisions. As acknowledged by the courts, the issue of the appropriate funding is essential to a fair and balanced consultation process to ensure a level playing field. This includes continued support for our energy and mining staff members, consultation efforts, and access to external resources as needed. For years, we have seen other provinces such as Ontario, British Columbia, Manitoba, and New Brunswick engage in resource revenue sharing agreements with First Nations in the mining sector. These agreements are geared towards improving government-to-government relationships, advancing reconciliation, and providing socioeconomic benefits to communities. Resource revenue sharing can provide more immediate and widespread benefits that potential supply chain opportunities down the road, and we question if the province is exploring similar agreements here. We also need commitments from critical mineral proponents that they are involving the rights holders at the earliest opportunity. More proponents must follow the path of reconciliation, and that involves working alongside the First Peoples. We recognize and appreciate the commitments outlined in Pillar 3, Opportunities with Mi'kmaq Partners in the Critical Mineral Strategy. This section highlights opportunities for collaboration, knowledge sharing, and capacity building. This could be a good starting point, one that we hope to build on through continued dialogue and action. On behalf of the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs, I want to thank you again for this opportunity to speak. We look forward to answering any questions you may have. Walalio.
Thank you, Chief Young. Now we'll ask Deputy Gatien, please.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here today to talk about Nova Scotia's critical mineral potential and all that the province is doing to make sure that Nova Scotians get all possible benefits for developing these natural resources, while also enjoying safe communities and a healthy environment. As was already mentioned, I'm joined by Janice Zinck, our Executive Director of Geoscience and Mines, who has far more technical knowledge than I do, so will ably assist with answering your questions. Nova Scotia is geographically small but geologically diverse. We have most of the minerals on Canada's critical minerals list. We created our own list and shared it in December 2022, and it is included in our critical mineral strategy that we released in March 2024. And just 2 weeks ago, we updated our list with 4 more critical minerals. We added as well a set of 4 strategic minerals that are economic drivers or have other benefits for the province. Our strategy and lists help focus ourselves and our industry on the greatest opportunities for Nova Scotia. We know that the demand for critical minerals is growing steadily because the world needs them for all of the technologies to reach net zero by 2050. By that time, we anticipate the demand will be up more than 170% for copper, nearly 400% for graphite, and more than 1,500% for lithium. We have all of those minerals and more in Nova Scotia, so there's tremendous opportunity to be part of the global solutions for clean energy. To supply materials for things like cell phones that we all use every day, and to secure jobs for our people, attract investments for our communities, and grow our economy. Mining brings the benefit of high-paying technical jobs to rural areas where more Nova Scotians can thrive. The industry accounts for at least 2,500 jobs in the province that pay an average of $100,000 a year in wages and benefits. We would like to see more of those good-paying jobs through the reasonable and responsible development of our natural resources. So we're taking action to support our mining industry to help bring those benefits to Nova Scotia. Every year, we invest in this industry through the Mineral Resources Development Fund. It provides about $1.5 million to help the sector with exploration, research, and more. We're also dedicating $500,000 in budget 25-26 to critical minerals. We will use that money and money through federal agreements for geoscience to learn more about our critical mineral potential and to inform development. Across government, we're working to make the permitting process clearer and more efficient, while still having the same degree of oversight and rigorous review. In the spring sitting of the legislature, government repealed the ban on uranium exploration and mining. And now we're moving to unlock opportunity for the industry to seek potential development and to regain knowledge about uranium that's been lost for decades. Through a request for proposals, we will engage qualified companies with a proven track record for safety and environmental responsibility. They will explore 3 areas of the province with a greater presence of uranium. The knowledge they gather could lead to new mining opportunities for Nova Scotia, mining that could be done under the strict regulation of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and follow our provincial environmental and safety laws as well. The knowledge will also help protect the health and safety of Nova Scotians in terms of well water and radon in homes and buildings. I want to note that it's not just mining that brings jobs and dollars into our province. Exploration alone generates anywhere from $35 to $50 million per year and provides good jobs for people across the province. So moving on opportunities for exploration means creating new jobs now. It means creating opportunities for Nova Scotians to come home, build their lives here, and help create prosperity for our whole province. It means opening the door to billions more in production when mines are developed, and we can do all of that safely and responsibly for the benefit of Nova Scotians. That's our focus, and I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I recognize Executive Director Zinck. No? All right, I recognize Mr. Kirby from...
Thanks very much. Climate goals rely on mining because things like electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels are largely made of minerals. The International Energy Agency says the world needs 6 times more minerals for clean energy in order to achieve goals like net zero. There simply are not enough mines in the world to provide the quantity of minerals needed, and global experts predict that there will be mineral shortages. Nova Scotia has tremendous potential to produce critical minerals. We've mined many in the past and can do so again. This would create jobs for Nova Scotians and generate revenues for government to help pay for programs like health and education. Nova Scotians strongly support our industry. We released a poll a couple weeks ago which shows 75% agree that the mining and quarrying industry can play an important role in maintaining Canada's economic independence as President Trump threatens our economy and sovereignty. Nova Scotians know that we need to create jobs, become more self-reliant, and build a stronger province. The mining and quarrying industry is part of the solution. 76% of Nova Scotians support mining critical minerals, like lithium, zinc, and copper, which are essential to achieving climate goals. That is a remarkable 11% increase in support year over year. We are grateful to the government for recently repealing the province's uranium ban. Uranium is a critical mineral. Because it is the key fuel for emissions-free nuclear power, countries around the world, including Canada, have committed to tripling nuclear power in order to achieve climate goals. Repealing the ban sent an important message to the global mining industry that Nova Scotia wants the job and investment that mining creates. It also signaled that the government is committed to making policy and permitting decisions based on science and facts, not myths and misconceptions. The next step the government must take is cutting red tape and permitting for the mineral sector while maintaining environmental standards. Fixing permitting is essential because it takes an average of 17 years to get from mineral deposit discovery to actual mining, according to the International Energy Agency. Too slow to achieve climate goals. Permitting is a major bottleneck in the process. That is why jurisdictions across Canada and around the world are taking steps to expedite permitting while continuing to ensure the highest environmental standards are applied. Nova Scotia needs to catch up. The government needs to restructure its permitting system for the mineral sector by putting one department in charge, as other provinces do. There are three main reasons for this. First, Nova Scotia's permitting system is widely seen as being the worst in Canada. This makes it much harder for us to attract investment in our mineral potential. Second, other provinces have a Department of Mines that is responsible for permitting and regulating the sector. They have one department that has the experts needed to efficiently and effectively regulate the industry, including, of course, protecting the environment. Third, most of the government of Nova Scotia's employees who are experts in mining and minerals work in DNR's Geoscience and Mines branch. However, they have almost no role in permitting our sector. Instead, we are almost entirely regulated by people in other departments who are not experts in mining. That makes no sense, and it is the opposite of how other provinces do it. Nova Scotia's structure creates uncertainty and confusion for project proponents. It often does the same for government officials who frequently work at cross purposes to each other and offer contradictory and ever-changing interpretations of permitting rules. We're not asking for regulatory oversight to be less stringent. Our concerns are with red tape, unclear requirements, and lengthening timelines. Our poll shows that 74% of Nova Scotians support consolidating the mine permitting process within one department, as other provinces do. 72% support setting a goal of issuing permits for new mining projects within 1 to 2 years. The mining and quarrying industry employs about 3,000 Nova Scotians, mostly in rural areas. We are the highest paying resource industry in the province, with average total compensation of $102,000 per year. Critical minerals create a tremendous opportunity for Nova Scotia. We can create more jobs for Nova Scotians. We can generate more government revenues to help pay for programs like health and education. We can build a stronger, more self-reliant province as we face today's extraordinary challenges. However, we need government support to achieve this, in particular for the government to restructure its permitting system. Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's my fault I didn't turn my mic on. So I recognize Mr. Mark Haywood, President and CEO of EDM Resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. As you know, modern society depends on many natural resources, from mining to make essential products such as steel, copper, aluminum, and many other things, products like zinc. We essentially rely on mining for virtually everything in daily life, from metals in our smartphones, to the steel and concrete in this building, to airplanes we travel on, to the cars we drive in, and of course, on the roads we drive on. So mining is essentially an essential tool today, not only in our community, but in our modern society. By way of background, I'm a mining engineer. I have about 16 years building and operating mines around the world, in Australia, Africa, Asia, USA and Canada. And a balance of my time has been a CEO for an exploration and mining companies in Canada, most of which have been listed on the stock exchanges. So I like to think that I have some knowledge in this area of mining in Canada. In our modern society, one of the particular metals we use is steel. Steel is used in construction, in buildings, roads and bridges, concrete, power line towers. We use them in automotive. We use steel in automotive. We use them in electric vehicles. We depend on steel for most electric vehicle fabrication even. Wind turbines, buildings, transformers to move electricity around our modern society. And of course, the transmission lines are also use steel. We also use copper. Our modern society depends on copper. Copper in wires, including electric vehicle motors. Wires for cabling. I've operated copper mines around the world. I've made copper that goes into cables that are used in people's houses to transmit electricity. Without copper mines, we wouldn't have copper wires to conduct electricity. So copper is a critical mineral in Canada, and it's also a critical mineral in Nova Scotia. As you know, I currently manage the Scotia mine, which is near the airport, Stanfield Airport. It's a zinc mine, it's a lead mine, and it's a gypsum mine. So it's all three of those products we are planning on mining. Zinc is a critical mineral in Canada and also in Nova Scotia. Zinc is largely used to protect steel from corrosion, which is called galvanising. Because of the massive demand for steel in our modern society, zinc is needed in large quantities and is deemed a critical mineral because of that. Zinc is an essential metal for a modern world. Zinc is used in galvanising, as I mentioned, for steel, essentially coating steel to stop it rusting. It's also used in die casting to make cars and machine parts. Brass and bronze is got zinc in it. We use it for zinc batteries. We use it in solar cells and EV components. We use it in agriculture. We use it in human health, in nutrients. We also use it in chemicals to make rubber. By example, a Nova Scotian wind turbine, which is typically about 5 megawatts of capacity, has about 30 tonnes of zinc in each one. In each of those towers, that's 30 tonnes, which is about, it's about 64 150 trucks that they can carry. 60 of them are in 60 loads of zinc are in one tower. So that's a lot of zinc that we need for an EV world. Gypsum is also planned to be permitted and mined from the Scotia mine. Gypsum is a soft material. It's used in wallboard, drywall cement, plaster of Paris. It's used in soil conditioning, fertiliser, and sidewalk chalk. Zinc is a strategic mineral in Nova Scotia. Regarding the Scotia mine, it's nearby the Stanfield Airport, and we're on the path to production to produce zinc mainly, but also lead and gypsum. We're working hard with our team on site and with our First Nations partners, stakeholders, to advance the restarting of this mine into commercial production as early as next year. So we've received most of the major permits to go into production. We're working on the final authorisations with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And to date, EDM has spent over $50 million since it acquired the property in 2011. So once permitted, the company is going to inject over $40 million into the Nova Scotia economy, and that's as early as next year. We're going to create over 140 full-time jobs for Nova Scotians, which would be over a planned 14-year mine life, so it's quite a long period of employment for people. We're going to establish businesses and service contracts with a wide range of support businesses in HRM, from mining to help us mine, to transporting goods and services, to cleaning. So it's a big impact a small mine can have on our economy. Of course, the mine's going to produce zinc, lead and gypsum, which means we pay royalties to Nova Scotia. And through taxes, we'll be paying federal taxes to Canadian government. So as you can see, the development of our natural resources through mining is very important to our modern society. It's been a very challenging 10 years for EDM to identify property and do all the necessary things to work out whether a mine is viable, but at the same time build strong relationships with our First Nations, with our community and with our government. So take it from a CEO of a mining company, attracting investment for a mine in Nova Scotia has been very challenging. It's very important that the government of Nova Scotia do everything it can to make the province more attractive for investment. Cutting red tape, expediting permitting while maintaining strong environmental standards would be a major investment incentive. The current permitting and regulatory structure creates major uncertainty, confusion and delays for projects. I think Sean has mentioned some of those, but that's what we've definitely seen. Typically, companies run out of money and time before they're able to complete the permitting. So you have a time frame that this needs to be done within. So I believe to implement an attractive critical mineral strategy and develop Nova Scotia's mineral resources, a restructuring of the permitting system would attract investment. You only have to look to other provinces and what they do and how they do it to provide some guidance. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you. So I recognize Mr. John Wightman, Managing Director of Goldfields Group.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to come here today, explain a little bit about the long process from discovery to mining. It is a expensive, time-consuming business. For instance, recently I had the privilege of being associated with a company called Moose River Resources. Moose River optioned a property near Middle Musquodoboit called the Touquoy deposit to Australians in 2003. We had held that property since 1996. That project finally went into production in 2017 and is now has completed its operations and is in reclamation mode. That gives you an idea how long it takes to get to the pre-mining phase, the pre-construction phase of the mine, which started in 2015. About $30 million was spent to get through the permitting, and then $270 million further was spent to put the mine in operation. It was a successful operation, and it contributed greatly to the economy of this province. My estimate is that there were $200 million accruing to the province from income tax and HST payments. So it was a big operation. We have other opportunities. My group of companies, Goldfields Group, has the exploration licenses for approximately half of the critical mineral deposits in Nova Scotia. That ranges from Sydney area, Frenchville, with a graphite mine, potential graphite mine, can't get the horse before the cart on that one. Takes a while, but we're gradually defining that deposit, and all the way to Yarmouth area, which is a property there, which is a tin, zinc, copper, indium deposit. And that's at a place called Dominique, about 4 kilometers east of the Yarmouth Airport. Of course, our greatest project at the moment is the Brazil Lake lithium deposit. In 2022, we had 1 million tons defined. At the Prospectors and Developers Conference in Toronto, we got a contact with an Australian company. They came in and spent about $8 million in the next year and took that deposit from 1 million tons to 10 million tons. That is sort of the threshold. We are now have enough resource that that is going to be a viable mine someday. Of course, that depends upon many features, including the funds to get it through pre-feasibility and feasibility, and then raise a massive amount of money, probably $200 million for construction, and put it into production. I circulated earlier a copy of a one-pager critical mineral strategy, which I hope will raise some questions from the members here today. I certainly support strongly the position of the Mining Association of Nova Scotia with respect to the permitting process and the necessity of streamlining that, because it can take, in some cases, it took 4 to 5 years to get the mine at Moose River, the Tukoi mine, permitted. And that's far too long. In Canada, most of the mining investment activity takes place in either Vancouver or Toronto. Unfortunately, most of those people think that Canada ends to the east at Quebec City. And it's very hard to get attention, but we are very fortunate in the Mineral Resource Development Fund that the Department of Natural Resources administers, is that they provide the opportunity for prospectors to go to that and a convention in Vancouver called the Roundup. And that gives us a chance for exposure. And this year in particular, the fact that the Premier came to Toronto and stayed there for a couple of days and went around and met a lot of people certainly raised a greater awareness of Nova Scotia. Now, I'm here today wearing 2 hats. One as the managing director of this Goldfields Group of companies. There are about 10 or 12 companies in that group. They're all private companies. But I'm also executive director of the Prospectors Association of Nova Scotia. And I would just like to give a shout out to our newly elected president, Morgan Verge. Wave, Morgan. Okay. She was just elected last Wednesday as the president of that association. And practically all the critical mineral deposits in Nova Scotia are found by prospectors. So it's a very important aspect of the whole mining operation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. So we're going to move to the question and answer part. Before we go, I first want to just say I neglected when I introduced Mr. Kirby. I did not indicate that Mr. Kirby is the executive director of the Mining Association in Nova Scotia. So we're going to start. First I want to remind everyone that I have to call your name before the folks at Lights TV turn your mic on. That way everything's recorded. So we'll try and wait for me to recognize you, okay? So we'll start with the first round of questioning with the NDP Caucus with 20 minutes. And we're MLA, I recognize MLA LaChance.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to return to Chief Young and hear a bit more about what your experience has been like in the last few years around the issue of the critical mineral strategy and mining in Nova Scotia. So Deputy Minister Gatien referred to, the creation of the list in 2022, the strategy in 2024, and then, of course, the surprise legislation which was brought forward by the government in 2025. Deputy Minister Gatien didn't refer to any Indigenous consultation with the Mi'kmaq or any constitutional consultation. Can you walk us through what the consultation with the Mi'kmaq community has been like to date?
I recognize Chief Young.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to look to my technician, Patrick Butler, to answer that.
I recognize Mr. Butler.
Great. Thank you for the question, Lisa. It's been a bit rocky, I'll say. It's a bit inconsistent with the recent developments on the notifications of developments. Unfortunately, our office, who coordinates and facilitates consultation on behalf of our member communities, are finding out a lot of these updates, such as Section 26 of the Mineral Act being utilized, Bill 6's introduction, as well as the change to the critical mineral strategy with adding uranium. We're finding out about these developments through the news with no direct notification from our office. We do have a great working group I'll recognize with Janice Zinck and her office called the Mineral Resource Working Group, which is a fantastic forum that allows us to have this working relationship with the province. But unfortunately, we are learning about a lot of these decisions secondhand and not having that direct line of communication that we once had maybe about a year ago, I'll say. So it has been very difficult in trying to keep up with the changes and just trying to inform our leadership and be technical support for them as needed.
Thank you. I recognize MLA LaChance.
Thank you. And so I guess, I'm wondering if you know why there's been such a change to a process that was working well. Do you think in the past year has the government been fulfilling its duty to consult?
I recognize Mr. Butler.
Oh, thank you. Even looking at the critical mineral strategy, there is a lot of great commitments in there. Pillar 3 focuses exclusively on the Mi'kmaq. And, just looking at some of the language in there, meaningful consultation with the Mi'kmaq when contemplating decisions, strategy that encourages collaboration and engagement with all interested parties, as well as facilitating the participation of the Mi'kmaq in the mineral exploration sector, which it certainly hasn't seen that. We did find out about the RFP for the uranium sites through the news as well, which it would have been nice to have a bit of a heads up and that these things are coming. So yeah, it's definitely eroded, and I do find there's resources that may have been available, let's say about a year ago, that aren't available anymore at this time.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
And I guess, so I'm wondering, have you requested a meeting of the Mineral Working Group to have a catch-up over what's been happening over the past year? And you mentioned the RFP that was issued for uranium sites. So did the department consult with you or anyone at the Confederacy around what an appropriate plan for engagement in that process would be?
I recognize Mr. Butler.
Great. No, we weren't consulted on the changes to the list of critical minerals, and there's been no discussion about that. In terms of our mineral working group, we've just got that back up and running, and it's great to have a new co-chair in Janice's department, so we're working on that, but we have reached out to the Office of Illinois Affairs and our department contacts that are newly in place, and unfortunately, we've had no responses on some of those matters, particularly on Bill 6 and Section 26 of the Mineral Act being used.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
And so the RFPs that were issued for uranium exploration include a rubric, and in that rubric, it's actually quite possible for proponents to have very little experience working with Mi'kmaq and with Indigenous groups. And so I guess my question is for Deputy Minister Gatien. How will the department rectify this challenge and start fulfilling the government's duty to consult?
I recognize Deputy Gatien.
Thank you for your question. What I will say is that, we certainly, the previous witnesses' comments notwithstanding, we certainly take our responsibilities for duty to consult very seriously. Beyond just the legal requirements, we actually do want to have a good, fulsome engagement with the Mi'kmaq and with the broader community over mining projects. And so I will take back some of the comments with respect to the not receiving responses and try to get that clarified. But it will be project by project. I think it will be really important as we see projects come forward. It's difficult right now for us to consult on something that doesn't exist in terms of a project, a concrete project in a particular area. But I think it would be really important, certainly to have rigorous consultation and meaningful consultation as the projects get developed. And in early days, I take the Chief's comment. I think the earlier the better. And I know we have a history, certainly in the province, of having good equity partnerships on different kinds of projects. This should be no different. So as we look forward in terms of what the possibilities are, we can certainly have that meaningful consultation and hold our developers to that standard.
I recognize MLA LaChance. I recognize MLA LaChance.
So, with that being said, the critical mineral strategy includes a whole pillar, and I hear your commitment. I hear from your partners on the working group that had been working well. So, what happened in the past year? Why did the consultation and communication and the duty to notify and consult stop?
I recognize Deputy Minister Gatien, please.
I don't know that I would characterize it as stopping. I think the committee has a particular role and purpose. I think it was a government decision to go in a particular direction and create legislation. I don't know that it was necessarily we're not going to do it in this case. The direction has been very clear, and I think the Premier's comments have been clear that there'll be meaningful and appropriate consultation on a project-by-project basis. I do, if you can indulge me, Janice had something to add on the last discussion.
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I just wanted to add a few points. So we did do a formal consultation on the critical minerals strategy, and as Mr. Butler has mentioned, we do have Pillar 3 that is focused on opportunities with the Mi'kmaq. And most recently, through the critical minerals strategy, we've funded KMK to undertake a study on the economic opportunities for the Mi'kmaq, and that draft report has been received, and we see all kinds of potential new work that could come out of that first project, that first report. So like Mr. Butler has mentioned, we're very pleased to have the working group up and running again. There was no deliberate reason why it didn't. I think that was partly scheduling, and then things got missed. We were on a regular rotation, but we were pleased to be back. Our last meeting was on March 31st, where we did talk about uranium, and we did talk about critical minerals and the critical minerals list being updated. Thank you.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
I guess, thank you for those responses. I guess I would contend that, government decision-making and scheduling doesn't override the constitutional responsibility to consult the Mi'kmaq people. So my question is for Chief Young. With this explanation of what's been going on, is that good enough? Do you think that's a reasonable explanation for what's happened? And what do you think should happen going forward?
I recognize Chief Young.
Thank you for that question. I don't think that I can fully respond to that question just yet without speaking to the rest of the Assembly on what their thoughts are.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
And so I'm just going to switch a little bit on focus. So the RFPs that have been issued for uranium exploration are largely on private land. Are there Nova Scotians living on these sites, and have you consulted with them prior to the RFP?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the RFP areas are mainly private land. There is a small portion of Crown land in some of the areas. The private landowners are being notified by letter, and they, in those letters, will stipulate their rights and where they can gain additional information if needed. And so it's a request for proposals. So what happens in the request for proposals, as you know, they mentioned the rubric. If and when there is someone that is selected as the appropriate recipient, they will receive an exploration license for one or the entire area. And at that time, it does not in any way does it mean that it only allows the exploration license holder the right to explore for minerals. It does not grant them access to the land, the private land. They would need to still gain private land access if that was the case, if they decided to proceed. And I also will note that exploration does not necessarily take place on the whole area. It may be a very, very targeted small area that the exploration takes place.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
So, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people organizing in the various areas affected by the current RFP, and I guess, you know, for them, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So, in fact, can folks say no to exploration on their privately held land, and can folks say no to having mining on their properties?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Yes, they can say no. They have the right to surface access, so they can prescribe whether or not there'll be access, whether it'll be access under an agreement, what types of compensation would be required if they were to grant access. And that's typically what happens, and certainly those that are in the exploration community, particularly John Wightman, could speak very much in detail to how the agreements would be in place if access was granted.
I recognize MLA LaChance.
So you talked about surface rights, but yet we know that there was the department, you know, accessed Section 36 of the Mineral Resources Act in the past winter to grant land to a lithium mining company against the wishes of the private landowner. So will the department be taking similar steps if a property owner says, I'm not interested in having uranium exploration on my property, to use the Mining Resources Act or the new powers that were developed under Bills 1 and Bills 24 in the spring session that will override the property owner's wishes?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Just a point of clarification, the two parties that were involved in the Section 26, they had been in negotiation for over 9 months. There were 8 versions of an access agreement in place. The department at that point, when it received a Section 26 request, came in to assist with providing some clarity around how access could be and how an agreement could be reached. It is a very rarely used clause in the Mineral Resources Act, only 2 or 3 times in the last number of decades. And the current position of the minister is such that he would not likely, and I would say probably would not, enter in. I cannot speak for him, but what he has spoken to is that the two parties would need to have shown some willingness to come together in an agreement. And so I think with confidence I could say that, you know, for access for for exploration. If a private citizen did not want to have access, they have the rights to their surface rights to their land.
I recognize MLA LeBlanc. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back again to Chief Young for a moment and ask a couple of questions about hydraulic fracking. It's wonderful to have you here to ask questions in person. So you've made it clear that the Assembly is opposed to fracking taking place on unceded and traditional territory. Can you tell the committee why you are deeply opposed to fracking?
I recognize Chief Young.
Thank you for that question. I'm going to defer to Patrick, who's worked on this file for years.
I recognize Mr. Butler.
Thank you for the question. It's been such a rocky road. I think, like looking back at Alton Gas, that was such a contentious project and so near some of our Mi'kmaq communities. And just, the ban to fracking, I think, had a lot of really good scientific data behind it, a lot of public support, a lot of consultation with the Mi'kmaq leading up to that point. So it's really nice to see those thorough processes be implemented with meaningful consultation and engagement with the Mi'kmaq. So just lifting the ban and introducing Bill 6, it does undermine all that work that was done for years, unfortunately, and it can erode some of those relationships that our office and the chiefs have built over the years. And again, just the lack of notification and learning about these pieces through the media can be really frustrating for some of our leadership trying to make informed decisions and report back to their communities as well.
I recognize MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you very much for that. So since Bill 6, since the ban was lifted, has the government looped anyone from your office or from the Assembly into discussions on fracking since the moratorium has been lifted?
I recognize Mr. Butler.
So no, we have not had any formal engagement or letters, especially around the hydraulic fracking. I'm not sure if pieces have been relayed to the chiefs directly, but our office, KMK, through our technical staff and the consultation efforts, we haven't received any correspondence. Our chiefs did have one meeting with the Premier. It was a very short and very high-level meeting where we talked about a number of different items, one of which was hydraulic fracturing, but it's been very light in terms of the communication on this piece.
I recognize MLA LeBlanc with 2 minutes 15.
Thanks, and I probably have a sense of what you'll say to this next question, but I'm going to ask it. So what should the consultation look, moving forward with KMK and the Assembly and Mi'kmaq communities throughout the province?
I recognize Mr. Butler.
No, and I think so far we've heard a lot of just chat about we want to have a discussion and we want to open the door and have these research opportunities, and I think that could have been done not by so much on a project by project basis, but maybe an overall industry. It would have been very easy, I think, for a representative to contact the Assembly and reach out before Bill 6 was implemented. And just see what the chiefs and the leadership think about it. It can be a bit frustrating, like I said, when we're learning through these things through secondhand knowledge. But Jess, I don't know if there's anything else. Or
I recognize
Ms. Ginsburg.
Ginsburg, sorry, Ms. Ginsburg. I apologize.
Hello. Just to add to what my colleague says in response to the comments about project-by-project consultation, if there's truly an intention to treat the Mi'kmaq as partners and a true collaboration, sorry, I don't know if my mic is picking it up. If there's a true intention for collaboration and partnership, approaching our communities and our leadership by the time a project is already in development is way too late. That does not look like a genuine effort to be inclusive. And in the Government of Nova Scotia's own words, the Government of Nova Scotia may wish to include the views and ideas of the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia in the strategic planning of important areas of public policy, which I would certainly say this qualifies as.
I recognize MLA LeBlanc with 20 seconds.
And would you say that the lack of consultation could be deemed illegal or against the constitutional, the rights of the Mi'kmaq in this case?
Ms. Ginsburg with 6 seconds.
6 seconds. I would say that has to be a case-by-case analysis, but it goes beyond just meeting the absolute minimum legal duty. It has to go beyond that.
Order. Order, please. So now we're going to move on to questioning by the Liberal Caucus. I recognize the Honourable MLA for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my questions are also around process. And as a caucus, we definitely support mining. We want to see the sector grow, but sometimes when fair process isn't followed, it can actually have the opposite impact in growing the sector and have backlash that is a challenge to grow an industry. So first with the Mi'kmaq, there's a duty to consult. My colleagues have asked about that. I just want some clarity around formal consultation by the provincial government. It was asked if there was consultation before the bill was presented in terms of removing the ban on fracking and uranium mining. So I just want clarification that there was no formal consultation related to either, both before the ban was actually removed and then after the legislation was enacted, because we've heard the Premier's comments around this, that removing the ban was about starting a conversation. So one would expect, if you didn't consult at that point, then the consultation would start before exploration licenses are sent out and people, treaty holders, find out about it in the evening news, as they said. So I just want clarity that there is in fact no formal consultation on either fracking or uranium mining with the Assembly.
I recognize Mr. Butler.
No. Thank you for the question. No, there's been no consultation on any of those pieces.
I recognize MLA Rankin.
Thank you for the answer. And to Deputy Gatien, when were you first informed that the government intended to lift the bans on uranium and fracking?
I recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
I honestly cannot remember the date. What I will tell you, it's certainly, you know the process as well as I do, in the process of developing legislation. So it would have been shortly after the election, I think. Yeah.
I recognize MLA Rankin.
So after the election, it was decided to lift these bans. And was your department involved in any consultation with municipalities? Or we're hearing no on the Indigenous leaders, but was there any involvement in municipalities, or did you advise the Premier that consultation would be a wise choice before bans were removed?
Recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
There was not consultation by the department, no. And when I say decision, I don't know that the decision was made shortly after the election. That's when I was informed. What I will say, though, is it is safe to say it's been a long-standing position of the department that we needed to look at uranium for lots of reasons. You know, the ban meant that we couldn't even do research on it. It was a really you know, all-encompassing ban, and there's significant need for us to do research as we're hearing more and more about things like the increased need for radon testing, and we honestly have very limited information in the department. So had I been asked, I would 100% have said yes, we should look at it for information, if no other reason, to be honest. But I think there's lots of really good reasons for the development of the mining of uranium as well. And consultation, any part of our recommendation would always include at some point, there has to be, you know, under the duty of to consult. We have to do Mi'kmaq consultation, we have to do community consultation, and how and what that looks like, we are still framing up.
I recognize the MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yet, most of the conversation today really hasn't talked about uranium. It's talked about all the other minerals that are listed on the critical minerals list. So we talked about challenges around copper. We talked about opportunities around graphite. We talked about zinc and tin and all these other materials. So really we're talking about the sector as a whole, but somehow the public relations campaign has focused on one specific mineral, and that is fracking too, but uranium mining, and the justification is the huge economic benefits. So surely if this was talked about before it was proposed, can the department provide the specific data that outline the projected economic benefit that the Premier cites to make sure that this comes through?
I recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
Are you talking about for critical minerals broadly or just uranium? I mean, first of all, there's not the same public discourse on the other critical minerals. I agree with you. But because they didn't have a ban on them.
Yeah, the point is I think the sector is asking for a number of things, and I'll ask a question on those because I think they're actually reasonable asks to move the whole sector forward. But I think the public is getting drowned out by the challenges around trying to follow process and getting them engaged if we're going to start uranium mining. And there's multi-billion-dollar figures that are thrown around, and we have yet to see anything tabled in estimates at any point during the legislature. There was also a $6 billion figure in terms of one lithium project. Maybe that's the one referenced at Brazilian Lake. So has the department validated that $6 billion figure? Is the department prepared to produce any tangible benefits for the committee to actually look at what the opportunity is?
Sure. I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. I think there's no doubt there's tremendous opportunities, economic and otherwise social benefits regarding critical minerals. Each project, as noted, is different. Each project is at a different phase of development, and as the phase of development advances, the clarity around the economic opportunity crystallizes. So we have over 20 critical mineral projects in development in this province, and even just looking at those on a again, on a estimate basis, we need to take in consideration a number of things. I'm sure you're very aware of commodity price fluctuations, and so if I gave you a number today, it would be different than a number that would be tomorrow. So we are doing the analysis. We are looking at the various projects, and as they advance, again, those numbers will crystallize. Industry participants can tell you that it's very important and it's essential that they go through extremely detailed and analysis in terms of the financial and bankable opportunity that's there. It's a necessity under federal security regulations that they file how much their projects are worth, and that is based on science. It's based on data that's from their geological resources, from their metallurgical testing, and all of this is public information that's accessible through a number of sites. And so each project must do that as they advance, and as they advance, the level of detail that's required for them, it becomes more and more stringent, and more information is required, and each one of these individuals could speak to that at depth.
I recognize MLA Rankin with 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
And the uranium deposits we have in the province, Saskatchewan is the other province that has success, and they have high-grade uranium, upwards of 20% in their ore. Does the department have data about the grade of uranium here in Nova Scotia?
I recognize the Executive Director Zinck, please.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we have very little data on the uranium concentrations. What we know is that there was quite a bit of drilling and analysis that was done in the 70s and early 80s. But for the last 40 years, as you know, we haven't been able to, the department or industry hasn't been able to do any analysis. So all we have is some of that historic data, not even all of it, to be able to quantify what the concentration is of uranium. We know there are those 3 hotspots in the province, but that's why both provincial and industry research is required.
Recognize MLA Rankin.
Thank you. And in Ontario, they're moving through a bill called Bill 5, which actually reduces the impact of the Endangered Species Act to speed up some of the issues with mining. Is the province bringing forward legislation similar to that, or any other legislation that would diminish the strength of Endangered Species Act?
I recognize Deputy Gatien.
I have received no such direction at this time. What I will say, I mentioned in my speaking notes about us trying to improve the permitting, which I would wholly agree with. with our colleagues here. That's not the same thing, though. There are processes and red tape processes that we ourselves have sort of built up over time, but we, again, take the responsibility to Species at Risk Act very seriously, so that continues, that work.
I recognize MLA Rankin with 25 seconds.
So there is an ask to reduce the process from 4 or 5 years down to 2 years. Is the department prepared to do that for the mining sector?
I recognize Deputy Gatien.
It hasn't been quantified in that way to me, but I think there are a lot of places where we have overlaps and duplication, and we're certainly working to make sure that it's as streamlined as it possibly can be to move things along while still protecting the environment.
Order, please. I now move to questioning with the PC party and begin with MLA Macquarie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Natural Resources. Could you just describe for everyone what are the most important critical minerals that we have, and how do we decide what is a critical mineral?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Currently, we have 20 critical minerals on our list. The list was developed by looking at 4 criteria. Those are the same 4 criteria we used in 2022. So whether or not there's geological potential, whether or not it's something that's going to be required to reach our emission reduction targets, whether or not there's a supply-demand risks there with that mineral, and finally, whether there's an opportunity for Nova Scotia. At the same time this year, we put a lens around the geopolitical aspects and looked at a bit of a defense aspect as well. This is particularly in light of the most recent restrictions that China has placed on a number of critical minerals that they have restricted export of about 7 different critical minerals. So because of that, we looked at those factors when we prepared our list this year.
I recognize MLA Macquarie.
Okay, so they are minerals and they are critical. Thank you. How are these critical minerals used in clean energy and other new technologies?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Critical minerals in general and the ones that we have on our list are used in many different clean energy applications, most notably in electric vehicles and batteries, so things like lithium, graphite, cobalt. These are all used in electric vehicle batteries. And then we have zinc, as mentioned, and manganese that are also used in batteries, but more for stationary batteries. We have a number of the critical minerals on our list that are used for solar. We have rare earth elements that are used for permanent magnets that go into electric vehicles, but also go into wind turbines. So there's quite an array of critical minerals that go into these clean energy applications, as well as the high-tech infrastructure that's required to support them, such as so a lot of the technology that goes around those energy efficient aspects. We also have our strategic minerals that go into looking at some of the kind of infrastructure applications related to support those critical green critical mineral clean energy applications.
I recognize MLA Macquarie.
Thank you. How do critical minerals differ from the new list of strategic minerals? Specific.
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. So the critical minerals really focus around those 4 criteria that I spoke of earlier, and really are related to energy transition, but also applications in defense and healthcare. The strategic minerals lists were put together because they were seen as economic drivers for the province, or minerals that were of other importance, such as potash for the agricultural industry. So with the critical minerals list being more energy transition driven, the strategic minerals list is kind of more focused on economics and other applications.
I recognize MLA McCrory.
Thank you. Could you talk a bit about the demand and the increasing demand for critical minerals, especially with regard to ethical sources?
I recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
Well, I think Janice has already spoken about the increasing demand, you know, whether it's our phones or our computers or wind turbines or solar panels. And we do know that there are other locations in the world that have sources of critical minerals, but they are not, like if you think of the Congo, where cobalt in particular, cobalt is sourced. And, you know, they do not have the same health and safety standards. They certainly do not have the same environmental standards. And so I do think it is, you know, we have an ethical responsibility to make sure we're using all of this material, and we're not going to stop tomorrow using our cell phones or our phones, much as it would be, or computers, I should say, much as it would be nice on some days. But how can we make sure that what we're putting into them is ethically sourced in the same way that we look at food, our local food supply and things like that. And so I do think in addition to the economic opportunity for Nova Scotia in terms of the development of critical minerals, I think we also know we can ensure a safe supply then. And we know where the critical minerals are coming from if we're able to do that. And we can also support initiatives across the country as well by providing our critical mineral supply to other development that happens.
I recognize MLA McCrory.
Thank you. So we've already heard some private landowners are being approached by, they're being notified about potential exploration. There are 3 sites selected. They're on privately owned land. For a landowner, what does that exploration look like?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. If you think about exploration, it's really about figuring out a puzzle in a way. It's you know, easy to see what's on the surface of the earth, but it's very difficult to see what's underneath it. So exploration is about finding out what's under the earth. And so different techniques are used. Some as simple as going on the land to take a sample, grab a sample, take the rock back and analyze it. There are other techniques such as, you know, even just picking up soil, analyzing that, or other non-disturbance techniques like flying over the land by sending signals down to the earth, which help to identify where prospective areas of a known mineral, a mineral might be. This is called geophysics. So again, it's usually done by drones or sometimes by aircraft or helicopter. But again, there's no disturbance to the landowners or to the surface. More disturbance activities are things that we're more, you know, aware of are things like drilling. So when you drill a hole, it's like essentially kind of putting a straw down to collect a sample and taking it out, which then you either look at or you send for analysis. It's important to keep in mind that the size of the hole that the drill core is taken from is smaller than a well water hole. So we're not talking about large invasive disturbance. We're talking about something that a drill rig would go on and take a sample or two. It could be more than that, but very strategically located. And so, again, when working with a private landowner, an exploration company would be in conversation to set forward an agreement which would lay out where and when sampling could take place, what compensation would be required, what kind of remediations the holes need to disturbance activities need to be remediated, what kind of security that would be required financially for doing reclamation. All of these things would be put in place, and that's, you know, basically it would tell the landowner in a way what they're sitting on. Like if you're sitting on a hot spot for uranium, I would think that you would want to know that. particularly as noted by Deputy Gatien, things like radon and even well water contamination that may occur naturally. People need to know the kind of geology underneath their feet. And that's what exploration tells us, is what the geology is under our feet. Thank you.
I recognize MLA McCrory.
Thank you. That's a very excellent answer. You kind of answered my next question, but I'd like to ask it specifically just so you can have an opportunity maybe to give us some more information, especially where we're concerned with landowners. What can they negotiate with a company that's looking for access to their private land?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. And just to elaborate a bit on my previous answer. So in working with a landowner, an exploration company or individual, a geologist would negotiate a land access agreement. And in that land access agreement can be a number of things. It can be, again, where and when the company can go to do exploration. It could be, the specific compensation required to access the land, to drill a hole, to fly over their land. It could be a range of things. The remediation is required. Sometimes, and again, my colleagues could speak to this in depth, it could be even building a road for the landowner's purpose. There could be a number of things. Each agreement is a private arrangement. But they all would require that the company operating would fulfill all responsibilities and meet all their regulatory requirements under provincial and municipal and federal responsibilities. And it would lay out, again, the reclamation requirements in order to leave the land back to its original condition.
I recognize MLA White.
Thank you, Chair. In the department's opening remarks, you mentioned $500,000 in this year's budget, along with an agreement with the federal government for geoscience. I'm wondering if you can help us understand a little more about that. What do the projects of research look like, and what do you hope to learn from it?
I recognize the Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. We're very pleased to be able to receive the additional $500,000 in this year's budget to undertake research for critical minerals. As you can anticipate, it's a large field, and we have a lot of work planned this year, and that's been updated in the action plan presented in the critical mineral strategy that's now online, if anyone would like to look at it. But a number of things that we'll be working on this year include curating some education materials for critical minerals so that we can improve the mineral literacy within the province, holding training sessions for industry and interested parties on mining and exploration, but also looking at some of the geoscience work, which is putting together a Nova Scotian Critical Minerals Atlas, looking at establishing a new critical minerals kind of project facilitator within the department to help guide projects, undertaking market assessments, supply chain work, and criticality assessments, looking at doing a whole prospectivity map for the province to better demonstrate and to better showcase where critical minerals are in the province. And this type of work, this geoscience work, is extremely important to the industry to help allow them to be able to better target their research. We're doing some specific work for the federal government on graphite, and we're doing some additional work in partnership, again, with our federal government counterparts on things like looking at critical minerals in secondary sources, more of a circular economy approach. So if they're critical minerals in some of the mining waste that we may have in the province. So there's an array of different projects that we're undertaking, and for the sake of brevity, I won't go into every single one, but thank you for the question.
I recognize MLA White.
Thank you. The value chain is an interesting topic to me. So the critical mineral strategy has 6 pillars to advance the development of a critical mineral value chain. I'm just wondering if you can help us understand a little more about that and explain more about how we're using the we're building that value chain in Nova Scotia.
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. I, too, like you, are very excited by value chain opportunities within the province. I think that, you know, as some of the my colleagues around the table have already spoken to the opportunity for critical minerals, we can see that we have the resources in the ground within the province. At the same time, we also have a lot of advanced technology being developed in areas such as semiconductors and batteries. It's about how we connect those pieces together. And by working with our counterparts and partners, not only in industry, but with our Mi'kmaq partners, we can work to develop supply chains and value chains within the province. The name itself, value chain, I think demonstrates that as we move along that supply chain or value chain, the value increases. So if you take a resource out of the ground and then you upgrade it into what could be considered a chemical, or it could go into a battery. When you produce the battery, and the battery can go into an EV vehicle, each step along that value chain increases value, increases the number of jobs, and it increases the revenue. And so this is what we're looking at, kind of a holistic approach, not simply looking at, you know, extracting and shipping. We're looking at how we can bring the most value to the province from its critical minerals.
I recognize MLA White.
Thank you. That is the exciting part to me, because the potential is just blown up so much at that point. It's really exciting to me. So we know historically there are some mines that are mine sites that were contaminated, and I know you're working to address those. They come from a time with no regulations, and the Environmental Act didn't exist at that time. So we won't see that kind of thing, that kind of contamination today. What can you tell us about how modern day mining operates and the regulations to protect people and environment and to reclaim the land after the mine is closed?
I recognize Executive Director Zinck.
Thank you for the question. Nova Scotia has a long history with mining, some probably 4 centuries, and a lot has changed in that time, even in the last number of decades. We can see so much in terms of, you know, regulations that have come in place. We didn't have the Environment Act previously. The way in which modern mining not only has approaches that contain waste that didn't happen in the past, that treat water that didn't happen in the past, that utilize technology that minimize the use of water and reagents, but also the way that we have the regulations in place to have strict environmental provisions in place so that we protect and safeguard the environment. And Nova Scotia has one of the best records in terms of safeguarding the environment. Those historic wastes and those historic mines that happened in the past did bring jobs and revenue to the province. But we've learned a lot. The industry has learned a lot in its decades, and so things have changed considerably. Companies cannot start a mining operation until they post a financial assurance bond, and they also need a closure and reclamation plan. All of these things need to happen before even the shovel goes in the ground. So much has changed. Thanks for the question.
I recognize MLA Bowlby.
Thank you. The mining possibilities the opportunities for Nova Scotians are wonderful. In our youth that's in schools at the College of the Geographical Sciences in Annapolis, that Geoscience they're prepared to go to work. What are the opportunities for Mi'kmaq participation in social and economic development, and what kind of conversations and actions are happening towards this?
I think I'm wondering if somebody from the Mining Association should answer that. Would you like to take that, Mr. Kirby?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, our industry employs about 3,000 Nova Scotians. We're the highest paying resource industry in the province with average total compensation of $102,000 a year. We want to grow. We know we have potential to do a lot more, to create a lot more jobs for Nova Scotians, create more opportunity for people in the province. We love it when our young people can stay here rather than having to move away. We love it when we can bring people back home to Nova Scotia from out west or up north or wherever else they may have to go in order to get work. But as we, hopefully can take advantage of the extraordinary opportunity presented by critical minerals, we're going to need to grow our labor force, and that to me includes all Nova Scotians and certainly Mi'kmaq and everybody else. That's extremely important. A rising tide lifts all boats, and that's a focus that we all have. So certainly we want all Nova Scotians to benefit and to participate, and it's our job as an industry to do everything we can to reach out, to share information about our industry so that Nova Scotians understand how we work, why we're important, how we take care of the environment, and see us as an attractive place to work.
I recognize MLA Bowlby.
Mr. Kirby, could you expand on the critical minerals opportunity in Nova Scotia? And what steps can the province take to fully capitalize on this?
I recognize Executive Director Kirby.
Thank you, sir. I'm passionate about it, so I jumped in. Look, the extraordinary opportunity that we face as a province, and really that the global mining industry faces as a result of the ambitious goals being set by jurisdictions around the world to achieve very ambitious climate goals. It just creates an extraordinary opportunity for a province like Nova Scotia. We have mined many critical minerals in the past. We have potential to do so again. It is our hope that Mark's mine will be the first new critical minerals mine to get into production, hopefully even, as he said, next year potentially. So this is an incredible opportunity. At the same time, it's an extraordinary challenge because global experts are virtually united in saying that there will likely be mineral shortages globally as a result of the need to provide the sheer quantity of critical minerals necessary. For example, the International Energy Agency says that we need about 50 new lithium mines by 2030. That's an utterly extraordinary challenge in an industry that has an average 17-year timeline from mineral deposit discovery through to actually extracting. Maybe, frankly, an impossible goal, but clearly one that we need to do everything we can to try to achieve. The International Energy Agency estimates that we need about 238 new mines globally for a wide range of minerals. We want to be mining as much of that in this province as we can, creating jobs for Nova Scotians, generating revenues that help pay for things like health and education. This is really an extraordinary, period in our history in terms of the global effort to try to achieve climate goals like net zero and the sheer quantity of minerals needed to do it. So our focus is let's do everything we can to take advantage of that. As I said earlier, the provincial government repealing the uranium ban is a really important first step. That really, first of all, most obviously allows us to explore for uranium and see whether we have economically viable deposits. But even in some ways more importantly than that, it sends a signal to the global mining industry that Nova Scotia wants the jobs and investment that mining creates. And so we believe that's going to benefit the industry across all minerals, not just uranium. And there are so many others that we have in this province that we can mine and contribute to global supply and at the same time help build a stronger, more self-reliant province and a stronger economy. So it's very exciting. It's a really extraordinary time, and so it's really important to us that the provincial government continues to work with us. Repealing the uranium ban was a really fantastic first step. The next one is to restructure permitting. We cannot be spending year after year after year in permitting and just having it be slow and inefficient. We all agree on the absolute necessity to fully protect the environment. We are not asking that environmental regulation be watered down in any way at all. We're saying it needs to be efficient. We need to go from spending years and years in permitting to get it down to something like 1 or 2 years. The International Energy Agency recommends to jurisdictions around the world that they reduce permitting to about 1 year, while of course maintaining environmental protections. The IEA says that governments need to adopt a wartime mentality if we're going to try to achieve climate goals. We need to make extraordinary efforts here to try to do it. So the government of Nova Scotia has been a terrific partner, and we just look forward to working more with them on this really extraordinary challenge and fantastic opportunity for the province.
Recognize MLA Macquarie.
Thank you. This question is for Chief Young. I'd like to give you an opportunity to describe the priorities of the Mi'kmaq with respect to the critical minerals.
I recognize Mr. Butler.
Thank you for the question. I think working with the right partner is going to be very important, and just ensuring the Mi'kmaq are meaningfully involved at the earliest opportunity. There are certain companies that are great to deal with. I look to Next Gold in the Goldboro. They've developed a great benefits agreement, which isn't exactly critical minerals, but I think it sets a great example about working collaboratively and early with the Mi'kmaq. That was a process that took 5 years to get to where we are, and it shows, I think, that the Mi'kmaq and our leadership aren't opposed to the industry and opposed to the mining sector. It's just making sure they're involved meaningfully and at the earliest opportunity.
I recognize MLA McGowan.
Individual expertise in this really important and informative conversation. I do have a couple of questions for our industry witnesses. I'll start with Mr. Haywood, if I could. What is the expected scale and life of a mine, if successful, and is there an opportunity for expansion?
Mr. Haywood, please.
Thank you for the question. So I've worked all over the world and running mines and building mines, and one of the biggest things I see is the opportunity to put back into the community and develop employment in the community. And often these mines keep on going. They keep on going and they keep on adding life to the mine and creating jobs through training and apprentices and things like that. So the Scotia mine is starting off to be initially 5 or 7 years. And with our expected, the economics improving of the project, it's expected to go up to at least 14 years in the second stage. Some of that we need additional authorizations and permitting, and one of the reasons why we're here today is we need to make sure that that process continues and does in a way that can help the community and can help the province. So to answer your question, mines generally go on for a long period of time, and they employ a lot of people directly with the Scotia mine, of at least 140 people to start off. But indirectly, you've got thousands, millions of dollars being poured into the community for jobs that are related to the operation. So that can be a lot more than the actual job at the mine. Indirect transport, I've been working with our Mi'kmaq partners to provide a bus service, for example, for employees to the mine. That's a long-term contract. Cleaning, jobs, apprenticeships, all these things happen around a mining operation. And because our mine is near the airport, and I welcome visitors to come out, and we'll do a tour of the operation to see that this is here. It's been here for a long time, and it's been overlooked. It shouldn't be overlooked because this is considerable revenue to the province in terms of royalties. It's jobs for our young people for a long time. It's jobs that are going to make a difference to their lives, that they don't have to fly to Labrador, they don't have to go to the oil patch. They can be trained and they can work and contribute to a life in Nova Scotia. Thank you.
I recognize MLA McGowan.
Hayward. So my next question is either for Mr. Wightman or Mr. Hayward, whoever feels best positioned to answer. How does the recent announcements and subsequent actions related to natural resources development help to attract investment to the province and support your projects?
Mr. Wightman.
Thank you for the question. Again, I mentioned my earlier statement, the fact that the Premier had attended the Prospectors and Developers Conference. That certainly gave a much higher profile to Nova Scotia and the projects herein. I would like to also add that in our discussions with respect to the economic impact of mines, the lithium project that we have in Yarmouth County, I initially met with the Acadian Band and said, we're here, we're doing business, we hope to have a mine. And so I'm in contact with them. I've also had phone calls with Mr. Butler in the past. But our mine at the moment, I mentioned that we had met a threshold, the threshold being 10 million tons. That gives us a mine life of 10 years. But also on our property, we see the potential for another 15 to 20 million tons. We've only drilled a small portion of our mineral claims there. So it could be a 20 or 30-year mine. One of the big things about that mine is that we're mining a ore body called a pegmatite. Pegmatite is a highly fractionated granite with all the juices, the good juices coming to the top. And not only do we have lithium, but we have tantalum.
Order. I'm sorry, the time for questioning by the PC party has expired. We move on to the ND party and MLA LaChance, please.
Thanks. I only have a short amount of time, so I'm going to be quick. I mean, certainly, we also, we're really interested in what are the rural development opportunities from this work. People want jobs, and people want jobs in their communities. But it's not clear, it hasn't been clear to me how we've really quantified what the opportunity is. So, and I've asked the minister this before in estimates. There have been sort of job numbers bandied about, $100,000 a year jobs and this sort of thing, but it's not, we need to be clear with Nova Scotians. Nova Scotians need to know what that really means and what that means for their communities. So I'm wondering, Deputy Minister Gatien, if you can provide a clearer breakdown on the jobs you expect to be created in the province. So with the critical mineral strategy, with Bill 6, what do you think in terms of what new jobs are this fiscal year, next fiscal year? How much detailed data or projections do you have about the actual number of jobs that Nova Scotians will be able to get through what's coming up?
Recognize Deputy Minister Gatien with 1 minute.
1 minute. We don't have that kind of detail at this point. What we do know is based on current, previous mine, these are the kinds of jobs, whether it's a mining engineer, maybe equipment operators, et cetera. This is what it would take. As we develop the projects, though, that will be part of the calculation that we will make. Janice has already spoken a bit about, and I think I said it in my opening remarks, there's also revenue and jobs just in the simple exploration, prospectors that are out you're looking at what might even be there in the first stage and the possibility for them to earn some funding to do that work. And then as things go, we're also working with our colleagues in other departments around what are the workforce development plans that we need to put in place to make sure that all Nova Scotians, Mi'kmaq Nova Scotians, people living in rural communities, maybe people who want to retrain for new fields.
Order. I recognize MLA Rankin with 1 minute.
Okay, I actually really like the idea of the one department focusing on permitting. I think we were close to that when we had the Energy and Mines Department in 2018. Just wondering if there has been discussions with government, because I think it's a good idea. You could even move some specific staff from environment. Just thought you might answer that.
Recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
Not at this point. I know it's certainly been raised with the government, and we're looking at, what I will say is there's a lot of very significant activity happening amongst primarily the three LSI, Environment, Climate Change, and in our department, Natural Resources, to break down silos and make sure that we're working as efficiently and smoothly as possible.
I recognize MLA Rankin with 20 seconds.
I want to thank all the witnesses for coming today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I recognize the PC party with 3 minutes, please, and it is MLA McGowan.
Okay, my next question is also for our industry guests, and either one of the three that feels comfortable answering. How is the industry addressing growing need for education and public awareness about the importance, processes, and impacts of critical mineral exploration and mining, particularly among our youth and our local communities?
I recognize Mr. Kirby.
Thank you very much. One of the biggest challenges that we face as an industry is misconceptions about it that, as a general rule, are rooted in the distant past, and we can certainly agree that things like environmental and safety standards in prior generations were nowhere near what they ought to have been, and certainly they're nothing like what it is today. We're a very sophisticated, modern, high-tech, science-based business that takes excellent care of the environment. As an industry association, we spend a huge amount of our time trying to offer that educational information to people, providing factual, science-based information to Nova Scotians so they can understand the industry, how we work, how we take care of the environment, that our safety record in the modern era is so different from what it was historically, all those kinds of things. And so, yeah, we do, for example, social media posts 365 days a year to help people understand that. We do all kinds of things to try to offer that education to people because it is so important to our social license that Nova Scotians understand the industry and how they benefit from it. Most people don't know that their phone contains dozens of minerals and metals from all over the world and the extraordinary complexity of supply chains that make something like that possible. So we do everything we can to try to educate them about that because, again, it's important to our social license, and we also just want people to understand it. We don't, for the most part, interact with consumers because we don't generally sell a finished product to most people. And so it is a challenge for us sometimes to offer that educational information to people, but we do everything we can to try to do it because it's so important.
I recognize MLA Bowlby with 1 minute, 10 seconds.
Mr. Haywood, could you discuss the importance specifically of the 4 recent additions to the critical minerals list, please?
I recognize Mr. Haywood.
I see the critical minerals list as obviously growing insight and need now with the relations between the US and Canada. With the growing list, the reliance has to be, I believe, the reliance has to be changed somewhat. Canada has to be more reliant. Nova Scotia has to be more reliant. I think there's a lot of mineralization in Nova Scotia that can, with our partners, work these minerals to become mines and therefore become reduce the reliance.
Order. Thank you all very much. The time for questioning has expired. We've got 10 minutes for closing comments. I'd like to go to Chief Peters first, and we'll go down the line. My apologies, Chief Young.
So thank you all to the chair and committee for the opportunity to allow me and my technicians to speak today on behalf of the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs. We have spoken today not only about the challenges we continue to face, but also about the opportunities that can lie ahead if we are committed to a relationship rooted in mutual respect, transparency, and true collaboration. The development of Nova Scotia's critical mineral strategy can be a turning point, but for it to succeed, the Mi'kmaq must be fully and fairly included, not after laws are passed, policies are finalized, and decisions are already made, but at the very beginning when ideas are being shaped and considered. When it comes to the duty to consult, we have clearly outlined our expectations for early, meaningful consultation, proper funding to support our participation, and the need to revisit and update existing tools, like the Proponent's Guide. There should be transparency and predictability regarding what decisions trigger the duty to consult and whether procedural aspects of consultation are being delegated to proponents. There also should be consistent and real consequences for proponents not meeting such expectations. These aren't just ideas or suggestions, they're real, necessary steps to help us move forward together in a respectful and meaningful way. We have also emphasized the importance of economic benefits for communities as right holders of the lands and resources. These benefits may take the form of resource revenue sharing agreements and stronger commitments from proponents to work directly with rights holders. Proponents should be expected to engage early and often and be prepared to share a range of benefits with impacted communities, both financial and work-related. These are great examples of this already underway in other jurisdictions, and there's no reason why Nova Scotia can't do the same or better. As we noted, there are positive signs in Pillar 3 of the strategy, highlighting the potential for collaboration and capacity building. Let's ensure those commitments are not just words on paper, but are backed by real action. We're not against ethical, environmentally protective development. However, we will not support any approvals process that treats our constitutional rights as an afterthought. We remain ready and willing to work together to build a better path forward, one that benefits everyone now and for future generations. Walalio. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize Deputy Minister Gatien.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the thoughtful questions, and certainly want to say thank you to the Chief and her colleagues, as well as my mining industry colleagues. But a huge thank you to Janice. She was certainly a gift to the department when we recruited her back to Nova Scotia. So I do want to thank you. Thank you all, though, for your time and your questions. It makes all of our processes better to hear the concerns and the questions. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I recognize Mr. Kirby.
Again, our thanks to the committee for having us here today. We really appreciate it. I really hope that our passion and excitement about the opportunities that we have here in Nova Scotia has come across. We really do have the potential to create a lot of jobs and opportunity in this province through critical minerals and growing our industry. It is essential that we get permitting fixed. Every other province in the country is seen as having a better permitting system than us. They have one department that's in charge, which helps ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of the regulation, and they have the experts that they employ in government focused on regulating its sector, all of which, strangely, is not how it works here in Nova Scotia. So we hope the government will consider very seriously restructuring the permitting system for the mineral sector. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Mr. Haywood.
My great-grandfather was the mine manager of the largest copper, lead and zinc mine in Australia at the time. Mining built Australia. Mining is the backbone of Australia, and it's my view, I think with my colleagues here, that mining can be the same thing for Nova Scotia. Mining can build a great Nova Scotia, and you have a wonderful opportunity ahead of you. So thank you again for your time. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. And Mr. Wightman.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure to be here today to hear the comments of the various MLAs. I stress that there's much more to be said, and I would welcome any direct communication with me or the Nova Scotia Prospectors Association to tell you how it works. Thank you.
So I thank everyone very much. We're going to take a brief 3-minute recess and then move on to committee business. Thank you. Order. I'd like to call this committee back to order. The folks can stay or leave, but we are going to carry on. And so we're moving to discussions. And so the first discussion we have here is the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment requested to appear before the committee on May 27th. I think everybody's received a copy of that letter. To discuss the impacts of uranium mining in dense and small areas. So is there any discussion on this matter? So if there's no discussion, I don't know if this is proper for the chair. Oh, sorry. Okay, Emily LeBlanc.
Well, thanks. I'll just say, it's clear from the amount of people that we had at today's meeting that, I don't think we could have added another witness, which is unfortunate. And maybe it's something to think about. I mean, this was a pretty focused discussion, but, I would love to hear from the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. And so maybe we can look at, inviting them at a future time or putting them on the list for a future topic. But I do think that, we wouldn't have heard enough from them today because there were so many witnesses. So just want to put that on the record.
So I would agree. I guess I'm looking for a motion. I think I need a motion that we determine that that we would entertain that at a future topic setting. Emily McQuarrie.
This is a request that came from them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we maybe we don't need a motion, but maybe we just need to be mindful to invite them for a similar topic at a future date. Is that?
Okay. That's cool with me. So we're going to move to, we just leave it as it is. We've had those requests before. So the Department of Natural Resources contacted the clerk to inform the committee that the Department of Energy would be better suited to speak to the topic of the development of Nova Scotia power battery plants. The proposing caucus should move to take charge of the topic's witness. I have a go ahead, Emily McQuarrie.
Yeah, as you stated, the topic is about battery power. So natural resources is on the list, and it's more appropriate for Department of Energy to be present for those questions. So I'll make a motion now. I move to amend the witness list for the third PC topic, the development of Nova Scotia power battery plants, by removing Department of Natural Resources and adding Department of Energy.
Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor, aye? Aye. Contrary? That's carried. So our next meeting falls on June 24th, and we have decided, I think, several times before that we're not going to hold the natural resources meeting in the week that the schools are closing. Gives our MLAs an opportunity to be at all the different school closings they have and that sort of thing. So June 24th is not there. So is there a desire to change the meeting date? So is there any date suggestions? And the clerk has offered Thursday, June 19th, as an option for consideration. I'm just throwing that out there. I know I'm not available on June 19th, but that's my. What's our wishes on that, or will we just cancel that meeting and move on to the next available date? I have MLA McQuarrie.
If we don't hold that meeting, will that leave us with sufficient meetings to cover the topics that we've selected?
You want to answer that on the record? So we have plenty of available dates, and we don't have anybody booked for that, for that particular meeting anyway. It's what the clerk tells me. I recognize Emily McQuarrie.
So
So I guess we need a motion to remove that date, or is that?
I don't think we do. We just
No?
stay with status
We just
quo.
agree?
Is that correct?
Okay.
So if we have unanimous consent, we don't need to have a motion. We remain with the status quo. Excuse me. Okay, so I don't know that I can give a date for the next meeting, but the clerk will get back to us on that, and the topic will be determined. And the witnesses, we look forward to hearing from the clerk at earliest convenience. And with that, I adjourn this meeting. 3 minutes early, and I could have had. Thank you.